We've all set goals, the things we want to do, the business we want to start, learning a new high income skill set, being the fitness that we can be. See, most of the time, we don't achieve these goals that we set out to achieve. And in this video, I want to share with you why this is happening and why I stopped setting goals and what I did instead to reach a new level in every area of my life, be it financial, relationships, or even health. I'm at the best version of myself and how you can achieve that too with this simple 4-step mental framework. Hey everyone, it's Gabriel here and welcome back to my channel. So here's the reason why goal setting does not work. Most goals are desire based, and in order to achieve those goals, it requires a consistent set of action in order to achieve it. In order for you to achieve a goal, you need to take action, right? That sounds common sense. Many of us want to take this action, but we tend to procrastinate on them. And you've probably set goals that you want to do something, but you ended up procrastinating on the action required, necessary to achieve those goals. Again, I know it sounds like common sense, but hear me out. Until we find the root cause of why you are procrastinating, you will never be able to take those actions that you are supposed to take to achieve those goals. Now, you see, for the longest time, I always thought that the reason why I procrastinate is because I am lazy. But I realized that laziness isn't the root of procrastination. Procrastination is always rooted in some form of fears. And it can be all kinds of fear. Here's a few examples. Number one, fear of the uncertain, fear of the unknown. You don't know what's going to happen, and so you fear it. Fear of failure. This is very common. What if you try something and you fail? What if you try something, you fail, and your friends laugh at you? What if you try, you fail, and you wasted all the time, money, effort for nothing? Even fear of success. What if you achieve success in the things that you set out to achieve? Will things change? For example, I've seen people who are afraid that to start a business, they are afraid because if they succeed in their business, they actually become rich, and that their friends will judge them because they have friends that believe that rich people are evil. And so even fear of success, not just fear of failure, can stop us from taking those necessary action. See, most of the time, these are very subtle. People don't say it, but their actions shows it. Now, our brain will always constantly find ways to avoid pain more than gaining pleasures. So because of that, fear is actually a type of pain, and we will always try to avoid pain rather than face it. Until you resolve this fear, you will always procrastinate and never achieve your goals. So doing my search for an answer to this, I found a solution that has worked for me every single time. And I was first introduced to this when I was watching one of Tim Ferriss's TED Talk. And it's actually a very simple 4-step mental framework called fear setting. So instead of just setting goals, you want to confront your fears by setting fears. You will do this by writing down on a piece of paper, but after you are used to this, you can actually start doing it mentally. And I realized that the more I do this, right, the more I see my fear melt away and disappear just by using this 4-step framework. So I'm going to share with you this 4-step framework right now and give you a real examples of how you can apply it. Maybe share with you a quick story on how this affected me. So this is just one example. About I think 3 to 4 years ago, I wanted to fly to the US to attend a marketing conference. Now my business is in Singapore, so US is halfway around the world. Okay, and because it's that far, I didn't want to just go for a short trip. Okay, it was my first time there. I was hoping that if I were to go, I would at least take a 3 to 4 weeks break, because just by flying itself, it already costs more than 2 days because the flight will take close to 20 hours one way. And so I wanted to fly there, and I wanted to take a trip as well. Might as well, if I'm going to fly all the way there. But I was procrastinating on this for the longest time, right? Because it was hard to run my business online due to the time zone difference. And I was afraid that if I leave my business for 3 to 4 weeks, what will happen to my business? And it is that fear that made me procrastinate every single year. Every year I say next year, I'm going to go next year because this is a conference that happens every single year. And every year I say next year, right? Because I just didn't have the guts to do it. Until a friend of mine called me out on this bullshit, right? He said, Gabriel, you say next year every single year. When are you going to actually do it? So I remember when he said it to me, I knew how to do something about it because I've been putting it off again and again. And I know that if I don't do something about it, it will never happen. So I chanced upon this video that I've mentioned earlier and learned this 4-step system, and I actually applied it, okay, in this exact situation. Okay, so first thing you need to do is the action. You need to focus on the action that you want to take, right? So the action that I needed to take was to attend this marketing conference in the United States and take 3 to 4 weeks off my business. So how do we confront the fear? Step 1, The question is, what's the worst that could happen? And list it down. So that's step 1. Okay? And so every time you have an action that you're procrastinating on, you want to ask yourself, what's the worst that can happen if I were to take this action? And then actually list it down and write it down. Now, the difference between trying to visualize it mentally versus writing it down is that usually it will look worse than it is when you picture it in your head. But when you actually write it down and read it to yourself, it doesn't sound so bad. So here's some examples, right? Number 1 is I could lose 1 or 2 clients. Okay. Number 2 is my team has no direction for 1 month. Number 3 is, we could lose some money. And then as I list down, I realized that actually that's not a lot, right? There's only 3 to 4 things that could happen, the worst case scenario that could happen. And a lot of times just by doing the first step, okay, it's a 4-step system, but just by doing the first step, I realized that it's not as bad as it looks, or at least it's not as bad as how I picture it mentally. So now we move on to step 2, right? And step 2 is, what can I do to prevent this worst case scenario from happening? So here's the things I list down. I can create systems to run the team while I am away for this trip. Number 2, I can train up someone to take over, right? If the trip's happening in 3 months, if the trip's happening in 4 months, I have this 4 months right now. It's not like I'm going next week. I have this 4 months right now. What can I do to train up someone to take over what I'm doing? In fact, it can be a good test, right? Especially if you have leaders in a company. For me, I had a couple of leaders that I was, I was not empowering them. And I thought, this could be a good time that I can empower some of the leaders to run things without me. And if this person can't even handle it for 1 month, right, then it's likely that it'll be harder for this person to run day-to-day operation and even promote this person, right? So I realized that it could be a good test for some of the people that is working in my company. Number 3, I said to myself that if I don't train someone to do it anyway, I always have to do it myself. So I have to train someone. Number 4 is that I can plan for all the worst case scenario that might happen, because we run a marketing agency, we have clients to deal with. I could plan for what are some of the worst case scenario of what might happen if I'm away and I'm not around, all right? And I list down all the things that I'm doing and list down all the worst case scenario that might happen to the client and ask, and list down some scenarios of what my team can do, okay, if this certain situation happen. Number 5 is I thought to myself, even if I lose customers, or even or maybe if I were to lose money, how to prevent losing money in this 1 month, if my sales were to drop, I can double up my marketing effort before I go for the trip, right? I mean, I still have months, right? I could double up my marketing effort, get more sales in to replace that 1 month that might be lost. Okay, so if you realize that if you plan the worst case scenario and you actually think about solutions to even prevent it from happening, it actually further reduces your fear. Step 3, what can I do to repair even if the worst happened? Okay, so what can I do if the worst case scenario really happened? So even if I were to set things in place to prevent it and it actually happened, what can I do to repair them? And list it down. See, a lot of times when you do this, you realize that, so here are some examples of what I list down. I realized that I could bring on another client, or just get the client back when I'm back into Singapore. Okay, I can connect the client again and ask what's happening and get back the client if I were to lose any client. Now, it's unlikely I'm going to, but it's not the end of the world. Number 2, I can also double up my marketing effort when I'm back to recover what was lost. Number 3, if things really happen, I realize that actually it's a good thing, because now I know, right, I've set up a system before I leave, and I'm allowing the system, I'm testing the system without me around. And so, when you set up something and then you let it run by itself, you will find leakages, right? It might leak, something will happen, there's holes in the system. And so when I'm away, I realize that if I'm back and something breaks down, I know that there is leakage, and now I know where to put my attention to, so that in the future, if I were to leave on another trip, okay, the system will be better than the last time I left. So I could come back and focus my attention on where's the leakage, where's the holes, and fix them. So by doing step number 3, you also start to realize that actually, even if the worst case scenario happened, a lot of things can be fixed very easily, or a lot of things can be fixed with just a bit of money. So now we go into step 4. And this is the most important step. The question is, what would it cost me if I don't take the action? So for example, for me, if I don't go to this US conference. See, this question forces you to reframe and to focus on the pain of what you will miss out if you don't take that certain action, instead of pain of what's the worst that can happen. See, what's powerful about this is that the pain of regret is usually more powerful than the pain of doing something and failing, okay? So instead of focusing on what could happen if I were to go to the trip, the worst case scenario, which I already have things, plans to prevent it and to repair it, but now I'm focusing on the regret if I don't go. And then I list down a couple of things, right? The first thing is my business will always be stuck because I'm just stuck in Singapore. I'm not learning new things. I'm not bringing new knowledge, new information to the company. Number two, if I can't even take a break, right, I'm a slave to my business. And if I don't do this right now, I will always be a slave to my business. Number three, I might miss out on opportunities and learnings to take my business to the next level. Number four, I lose competitiveness because my competitors are going for events all over the world and they're upgrading themselves and they're learning, they're becoming better, but I'm not, I'm stuck here. So with all this in place, right, by asking these 4 questions, the fear went away, right? It became very logical. First of all, the fear wasn't as bad as I thought, right? The worst case scenario wasn't as bad as I thought. And I minimized that fear by setting in place things that I could prevent, okay? Things I can do to prevent it from happening and things I can do to repair whatever situation that happened if it were to happen. And lastly, I focus on what I would miss out, right? The regret, the pain of regret rather than pain of trying and failing. And guess what? I eventually went. And my business was fine. It didn't collapse. Now, sure, there were some issues. There were some things that I have to come back. I have to solve it. I have to fix it. But I'm glad I found out those issues right now. And that was a couple of years ago, right? And that's the reason why our company was able to scale and grow today. Because those issues, if I didn't find out 3-4 years ago, I have to find out now, and then it would delay our scaling process. And many of those issues can be fixed and can be solved with only a couple $100, at most a few $1,000s, and it's not, life and death situation. Now, what I would have missed out will be much more devastating, okay? Because what happened was that I enjoyed the trip so much. I eventually, at a marketing conference, I joined a coaching program that requires me to fly back to the US 5 times in one single year. So I was at first, having issue just going 1 time, but now I'm going back 5 times in a year. And I've picked up so much things in that coaching program, in the learning, the network, the connection. It allowed me to scale my business to over $10 million the following year. Okay, our business was doing about $1 million to $2 million a year. And then we were able to do $10 million for one of my business the following year. Think about that. If I didn't go on this trip, this would never happen. So if I didn't go for this trip, I'll probably regret because all this good stuff that happened to me over the past couple of years wouldn't have happened and my business would still be stuck. So, summary, focus on the action that you have been procrastinating, such as starting a business or a project that you've been putting off, or maybe taking your relationship to the next level, like maybe a marriage, or going to the gym, right? Getting your body to the point of being the fitness you can. And ask yourself this 4 questions, right? Anytime you're procrastinating, focus on the action that you're supposed to take, and then ask yourself this 4 questions. What's the worst that could happen? List it down. Step 2, what can I do to prevent the worst from happening? Step 3, what can I do to repair it, right? What can I do to repair it even if the worst happened? And step 4 is, what would it cost me if I don't take that action? So I hope that this 4-step framework will help you to overcome procrastination and take your life to the next level in whatever areas that you have been procrastinating on. That's all I have for you today. Let me know what is the biggest takeaway you have in the comment section, and don't forget to like and subscribe to this channel to help this channel out. That's all I have for you today. Bye for now.